Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day this is. I do hope it finds you well. My name is John, and I am an author, and I'm coming to you here on another Talking Tuesday to discuss my love and interest in some of the influence I've had on video games, particularly as it relates to storytelling and some of the things I'm interested in. My first memory or experience with video games goes back about as far as my memories do. I mean, it was about five or so when my parents got their first computer, and as well as being allowed to play solitaire, Minesweeper, and some of the stuff like that. There was also a game that came preloaded on it. I think called Gorillas. I'm not 100% sure, but basically, you and another player at the same computer play two gorillas standing on a cityscape throwing exploding bananas at each other, where you'd have to input sort of the angle of your throw as well as the force of the throw, trying to hit the other person, accounting for the cityscape and the wind speed and wind direction and all that kind of stuff that was randomly generated as part of it. It was a lot of fun. I remember being very engaged. At some point, also, when I was fairly young, I don't remember exactly how old, my parents got a Super Nintendo system. Play, Super Mario World. Two of my favorites, though, really involved some key storytelling, which were, Super Mario RPG. I just really, really loved, the game and the world, and that there was a story involved in it that you really got to participate in. And similarly, with my love of the fantasy genre, which was already existing, um, Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. I really love similarly the Zelda universe and the lore, and I would just read and explore and have fun. I really enjoyed that game a lot. I remember at various points, as I was growing up, bought a Nintendo 64 and a PlayStation 2. Another one of my favorite games from that time, was Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Just a brilliantly made game, and again, a very immersive story and lore. And I played, when I was younger, lots of games. I remember on that first computer my parents had playing Civilization, the original. Eventually later, playing Civilization 2 and Alpha Centauri and the original StarCraft, and some of those early games that really interested me. The Command and Conquer and Red Alert series, I remember doing a lot and really enjoying too. Um, when I started really getting interested in what you could do story wise with games. I remember playing Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII. I honestly don't remember why I never got around to or never played Final Fantasy IX, but then later Final Fantasy X and the online game 11, and I've done 12 and 13. I haven't really done anything since then, but just that really it presented a great immersive story that I actually got to be a part of, which I thought was really, really cool. Um, yeah, that's some of my favorites. Some great memories there. You know, moving into as I got older, moving into college, I started discovering um, some other games. I got into for a little while. MMOs. It was they were just huge, immersive worlds. You got a ton of exploring. Lots of lore and things to learn and find out about. I tended not to, I played that somewhat sporadically. I mean, it was fun playing with friends and having such an open world, but I sort of get lost in so much to do and, having to rely on others to get anything done or, explore. Plus, all the issues that come up with like other players, sneaking up on you and killing you and ending up in fights and stuff like that. Excuse me. So I really had a lot of fun with that, but it came sort of sporadically. And then, as I've gotten older, I really discovered more in the way of really what you can do with, game storytelling. The original Knights of the Old Republic, Knights of the Old Republic 2, um, Mass Effect, which is probably my favorite game or game series of all time, and Dragon Age and some of the others like that. That I've just you know gotten into and love sort of the immersion and the lore and everything with that. I will fully admit, perhaps I can be called not a very good gamer, as I tend not to finish a lot of the games I play, depending upon what they are. For sort of video games, more as I've gotten older, more and more and more have been, there's a lot of open world and a lot of side quests and a lot of areas to explore, all of which have like achievements and completion and exploration bonuses and yada yada yada. And on the one hand, that's really cool as someone who loves lore and setting and just really feeling like you're part of another world. It's great. But perhaps this has something to do with you know with my ADHD. Perhaps it's something else. Is just I tend to get very like I tend to end up, regardless of what my intention is to start off with, I end up very completionist about it, of like really really wanting to get everything done, do everything, explore everything, and I just get overwhelmed by just the huge amounts of stuff you need to do, which is often very repetitive. Like, okay, wander around this region, kill 10 of these creatures, find the hidden such and such, go to another region, wander around the region, kill 10 of this other, and it just gets very, very, repetitive. And I just get frustrated or overwhelmed and give up. Or depending upon the game and the game style, I will run into a mission or level or boss or something that I have a really hard time beating. I get super frustrated and I put the game down and I move on to and do some other game. And then I would come back, you know, 6 months, a year later, like, oh, I remember really loving this game, but I don't really remember how to play. So I end up starting off at the beginning to reteach myself how to play. And then I get to about the same point in the game and get frustrated and give up and decide to go, and give up on it again. Like I said, maybe that's an ADHD tendency. Maybe that's just who I am as a person, but I tend not to finish a lot of games I start. I will fully admit that I'm very interested when I play games in the story of the game. So I mean, you know, for those of you who do love playing things on Nightmare, Hardcore, Brutal, or whatever the name the game gives it, hey, good on you. If that's something you enjoy and have fun with, great. That's why it's in the game, presumably. But for me, I'm there for like the story and the immersion. So I'll usually play on normal or story mode, or whatever the situation may be, because I'm there to relax and get immersion, not challenge myself. Do that enough on my own on a daily basis. I don't need to artificially do it with a video game. So yeah, it's just something that's my thoughts on that. And I think really video games are very much underappreciated on a storytelling level. I mean, like books and movies, you're stuck with the pathway and just the setup that the author or the director or the writer or whoever has set up for you, and you're watching it as a third person. Video games, you are, a lot of video games, again, increasingly now, you get some choices on sort of who your character is, how they interact with the world. Yes, due to the limitations of, video games and time and programming and yada yada yada, a lot of the choices are very artificial and don't matter a ton, but you still have like some choices and some ways you can sort of color within the lines that the story creates of who you are and how you play the game, which is great. And then you just have and then there's the fact that even in games without a lot of choices or without any choices at all, there's very much the immersion. Like, you're not just watching as a third party, you're participating in the story. And I think that's really wonderful and a really great setup. um I'd say for me, my favorite game of all time is probably the Mass Effect trilogy. Not only is that a great example of what you can do with video game storytelling, I think it's personally, I think it's one of the best science fiction stories um, that have come out or been produced in any form, for the last few decades at least. So it's a really, really special. Of course, it's not, there's issues with it. No work of media is perfect for various reasons, but it's a really, really wonderful setup, and is a game that I've played through multiple times and probably will again sometime soon. I wouldn't be surprised, but yeah, it's a great game, great setup. So I do, yeah, that's just my thought on games, and sort of, it gives me some of the ideas. It's definitely given me some ideas on how to approach storytelling and decisions of my characters, and just like what you can do with story and lore. It has definitely been impactful. I would encourage you all and ask you all to check out my books, The Shadow of the Past and The Sunburned Red. Both of them are available, linked below. Um, Also, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you have a favorite video game system? How do you like to play games, and how do you approach the story of a game? Please comment, like, share, subscribe, all of that great stuff. That would be really appreciated. Um, my name again is John. I do hope you have a wonderful day and get the chance to do or experience something creative, and I'll catch you on the next one.